Morning. Today is the day that we study the book Action and Reaction. And I wasn't here last month, so I'm going to share the last two chapters that we did so we can catch up. On chapter 9, that was a couple of months ago. It was Silas' story when they had new contact with Clarindo and Leonel, the brothers that were killed by Olympio, Antonio Olympio, the one that is struggling there in Mansão da Paz, Mansion of Peace. And they meet Luiz, who is the son of Alzira and Olympio. Luiz is an unfortunate usurer. So Silas recounts the story of his latest incarnation, his Silas' latest incarnation, his passion for money, the fall into usury. He was a medical doctor. His indirectly was guilt on his father's crime against his stepmother called Aida. And then his discarnation, which was considered a suicide as a rich young man bored of life, when in reality it was an accident. The plan devised by Silas and his father to redeem the moral debt owed to Aida, and they explain why Silas and his father had not yet reunited with Aida in the spirit world. These are dialogues of Silas aiming to indirectly enlighten Clarindo and Leonel, both visibly touched by the assistant's narrative. So last month with Elmo, you saw the understanding, that's called understanding, under the gaze of Clarindo and Leonel. Silas provides assistance to Laudemira, a pregnant woman under the care of Mansion of Peace. Silas demonstrates how a spirit can establish beneficial causes while in the spiritual plane in preparation for the work he will perform when reincarnated. Then he tells the story of Laudemira's case, her serious commitments to motherhood, and they take the opportunity to do a study on the principles of cause and effect, action and reaction, which is the title of this book. The aspirations of Clarindo and Leonel, and a sign of renewal in both. And so they outline the redemptive process of Antonio Olympio, Clarindo, and Leonel. Then Silas leads both of them to a friend's work studio, so through music they may prepare themselves emotionally for the moment of final renewal. And then the confessions by Leonel, and Silas explains the respect we owe to the confessions of others, even when we already know them, the importance of listening when people need to speak. So Leonel and Clarindo renew themselves. They are welcome into Mansion of Peace, and they encounter with Alziras, who's going to be their mother in a new reincarnation. And they killed Alzira in the previous, through their spiritual influence, and they ask for forgiveness, and she forgives them. She's already in a more advanced stage of evolution. Okay, so that's the end of the story of Antonio Olympio, Clarindo, and Leonel. Now we start a new part of the book, and this chapter is called The Temple and the Parlatory. Parlatory is a room set aside specifically for conversation. Okay, so Zoraida, can you start reading for us?
Yes. Yes. Could you put the letters a little larger?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Better?
Okay.
No, not really.
Right.
No?
Little more.
No, actually, it's got smaller, actually.
Okay.
Now you got
Okay.
better? No?
No.
No, so let me stop share. Let me work here. Try again. How about now?
Okay, it's okay. I see the words, yeah. Okay, the temple and the Parlatory. As accumulating events related to Antonio Olimpio case came to an end, Hilario and I were still interested in continuing our studies, so we went to see instructor Druso, who advised us kindly. I know that by now Mansao must have provided you with the basic elements for serious conclusions relating to the law of cause and effect. And Mansao, most of the problems have to do with the concrete fruits of action, and we witness up close the reaping of suffering in all its difficult and dolorous phases. And smiling, he added, the infernal region is packed full of accounts that no,
Have come due here in the top.
yeah, the infernal region is packed full of accounts that have come due. Here, avarice bears the torment of atrocious afflictions. Crime is faced with all kinds of belated, remorseful anguish. And moral delinquency is caught unawares by the darkness that increases its torment. The population of guilty souls responsible for planting so many thorn bushes does not have the courage to reap the poisonous fruit of their sowing. Disoriented and demented, they rebel against the scourges they have created and fall into the depths of rebelliousness and despair. In nearly every circumstances, one can easily see that around this place of readjustment and assistance, everything is in constant darkness and conflict. A vast field inflamed by improvident individuals who must now endure the fire and smoke they used to damage their lives. Druso finished. He walked over to a large window that opened to the gloomy mist outside and gazed sorrowfully at the sad landscape. He then returned to our side and stated, that being said, it would still be a good idea for you to continue your endeavor by focusing more widely on the principle of compensation. Among those lines, we consider the actions carried out on the physical plane to be the utmost importance because they become the determining factors for finding the heaven or the hell that individuals are looking for. That is why we predict that you'll both profit greatly from the activities in which you'll be involved in the region of relations between our institute and the ordinary humans close by. We must realize that we all create or renew our destiny each and every day. Learning this lesson takes long here because our institution is more like a way station where one comes to terms with one's guilt very slowly. Among incarnate spirits, however, the mechanics of the law are revealed more easily since the soul has to live in what it has built for itself in the physical vessel. The tree of existence grows, blossoms, and bears fruit. Physical death accomplishes the great harvest. Thus, the natural selection of the fruit takes place in our realm. Those rare souls that can show that they have grown spiritually are led to the harvest field of the divine light in the celestial planes for a fuller ascent toward the great future. However, by far, most of the arrivals are either worse off or still too soiled and must remain in a standstill in the repositories of darkness in the lower zones, where we are at the moment, waiting for a new sowing in the soil of the earth. The reason for this lies in the fact that all individuals cross the threshold of the grave carrying the images they have molded within themselves with the tools of sentiment, thought, and action that life loaded them, and they emit the forces they accumulated in space and time on the earth. Therefore, we think you should delve into the subject amid incarnate spirits in order for you to enrich your experience more fully. Conveyed in such a fatherly tone, Druso remarks moved me greatly. He spoke them with affability and sadness, despite the smile on his face. As usual, I was captivated by his overall hard-to-assess personality, so I kept quiet, accepting his recommendations. But the ever-restless Hilario took advantage of a short pause to ask, how would you suggest that we get started on our studies? The instructor promptly replied, There is always new material to study in the institutions outer temple and parlatory. They are usually frequented by individuals from the physical plane who are temporarily freed from their physical vessels during sleep, as well as by discarnates who wander around Mansao looking for comfort. Many of them are linked to the Institute through the threads of reincarnation, while others come to us in search of assistance. There are a large number of assistance stations there to collect their complaints and register their problems so that we may direct our work of peace and cooperation effectively. It would be interesting for you to join one of our service teams for a few days, collaborating with us and taking notes. May we count on Sila's help? Asked my colleague, referring to the companion whose presence for us represented sheer joy and courage. The instructor gazed at us expressively, surprising us by saying, if it weren't for the purpose of the information you're gathering here, we wouldn't allow Silas to guide your research, but we know that your work is meant to instruct our incarnate fellow spirits, and such an endeavor obliges us to grant your request. In fact, you shouldn't waste either time or opportunity, even though Sila's responsibilities here are currently enormous. I don't see how I can deny you his company, especially because he deserves our fullest trust. Soon thereafter, as we were immersed in silent thought regarding the trustworthy, intelligent manner in which our benefactor was leading us towards our goal, Sila was called in and was asked to give us all the help we needed. Both instructor and assistant engaged in a quick and private conversation, whose full meaning we couldn't guess. Once they finished, Sila set the exact time for us to meet up, and with that, our interview with Mansao's director came to an end.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a long introduction to the chapter. So the case with Antonio Olimpo is over. So they went to see instructor Druso. We remember him from the beginning, the responsible for Mansion of Peace, Mansão de Paz. As a reminder for those that forgot or for those that are here for the first time, Mansion of Peace is a institution in the middle of the lower zones that provides temporary assistance and relief for the spirits in need that are in no conditions yet to reach the non-solar type of colonies, transitory house of assistance, as they are called, and spirits that are already in the process of repairing their own mistakes, facing the consequences of their actions, preparing themselves to move to a more elevated plane or to come to a new incarnation, a reincarnation. So the spirits that are there are spirits that are already in the process of some sort of redemption, as we saw before, even with Antonio Olimpio, the father of Leonel and Clarín. Okay, so Druso, in this first part, he's explaining a little bit about the spirits that are received in that house of assistance, and he talks about the infernal region, which is the region they are in, where this house is in, and they are surrounded by the spirits that are guilty and are feeling angry at their own state of things, and he talks about the population of guilty sowers responsible for planting so many thorn bushes, but they do not have the courage to reap the poisonous fruit of their sowing. So these are the spirits that are outside Mansion of Peace. They are disoriented, demented, rebelling against the problems they created for themselves, and they fall in the depths of rebelliousness and despair. Okay, these are the individuals, spirits that surround Mansion of Peace. So he said that he recommends them to continue, and he says that what we do in our physical plane is what really factors in finding the heaven or hell that inside of ourselves, which we are all working towards, right? And he describes that the institution there is more like a way station. A way station is a place, a temporary place of passage, right, where you stay a shorter or longer time on a travel. So those that are there, that are the ones that come to terms with their own guilty very slowly, their own guilt very slowly. Again, they are already feeling guilt. They are already preparing to deal with it, but very slowly. And he explains that when we are incarnated, the mechanics of law are revealed more easily, since we have to live in the world that we build for ourselves, because our incarnations are a consequence of our past and a preparation for our future. So we come always with the best conditions available for our progress, but having to face the consequences of all of our actions in previous incarnations. And then he mentions that when we die, we accomplish the harvest. We harvest what we sow during our incarnation. So that he explains, after we go back to the spiritual world, the natural selection of the fruit, the harvest, takes place in the spiritual world. What does he mean? He means that we find ourselves where we place ourselves according to our actions, our thoughts, our spiritual state at the moment of our discarnation. So then he says that most that have grown spiritually goes to what he calls the divine light, or to better places, celestial planes, for a fuller ascent towards the great future. But most of the arrivals are either worse off or too soiled and must remain at a standstill in the darkness of the lower zones. Again, there is always progress, but the progress here is achieved by struggling and suffering with the situation we create for ourselves. So we are waiting for a new sowing in the soil of the earth, a new reincarnation. And then he continues saying that we carry the images that we have molded within ourselves with the tools of sentiment, thought, and action during our physical life. And then they ask if they can continue study a little bit more. And he replies, there is always new material to study in the institution's outer temple and parlatory, which is the title of this chapter, right? And he describes the individuals that go to those places are individuals from the physical plane who are temporarily freed from the physical vessels during sleep, as well as by discarnates who wander around mansion of peace looking for comfort. These are those that we are going to meet later in this chapter in the temple and the parlatory. Many are linked to the institution through the threads of reincarnation, others come in search of assistance, but there is a large number of assistants stationed there to listen to them, to register their problems, and to help them and coordinate the efforts of directing them to their new path. So they ask for Silas' help, Hilarios asks, and Druso says, because of the work that they are doing to bring this information to the incarnates, then he agrees that Silas will continue to help them, despite his responsibilities there being enormous. So Silas is called. They talked a little bit, Silas and Druso, that Andre Luiz couldn't hear, so he doesn't know what they were talking about. And then Silas set up the time for them to meet, and that's the end of the conversation that they had with Druso. Okay, Elmo, anything to add here?
No, not yet, João.
Okay. Any questions, comments here? Okay, so let's continue, Soraya.
Okay. The assistant kindly met us at the time agreed upon. We were going to visit Mansao's temple. We went down long hallways until a small door led us into a large, well-lit room. The place looked like a big chapel, much like the ones on earth, with its face turned outward. A cross made of a shining, silvery material on a simple white table in the center of the back wall was the only religious symbol there, but both of the snow-white side walls had shadow recesses in the form of niches. The predominant light enchantingly marched, the caressing melody echoing softly throughout the nave. What invisible hands were producing the velvety, tender music that inclined us toward reverence and meditation? More than 200 diverse spirits, forming a pious group divided into rows more or less of the same number, were praying in front of the empty niches. I don't know what strange emotion gripped my soul. The simple faith of my childhood resurfaced. I remembered my mother teaching me my first prayer, and as if the vibrations of that hour were a blessed rain washing over every corner of my spirit, I forgot about my former experiences for a few minutes and thought only about the Supreme Lord, our God and Father. Hot tears moistured my face. I wanted to ask Silas a few things. However, during that first contact with Mansao's outer sanctuary, I could do nothing but pray and weep copiously. For that reason, even though I could have said something, I didn't. I just kept contemplating the luminous cross with a combined feeling of respect and gratitude. I remembered the divine messenger who had sacrificed himself on it to show us the way to our victorious resurrection. And I repeated in the depths of my soul, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. So be it. I noticed that Silas was following my smallest gestures, because when I had finished the Lord's Prayer, he said, It's true, Andre. Very few can enter this room without sheltering themselves in prayer, shielding themselves in prayer, and gazing at Hilario, who was also wiping away spontaneous tears and wanting to include him in his explanation. He concluded, This small arena of thought is sublimated by the remorse and pain of thousands. Countless legends of souls built up through suffering and faith have come in tears of repentance, of hope, gratitude, or anguish. Our inner temple, whose services you have already attended, functions as if it were the living heart of the Institute, whereas this outer sanctuary is the symbol of our hands in prayer. I nodded toward the individuals praying silently in front of the empty altars and dared to ask my kind friend, What is the meaning of the cross in these empty niches? The assistant promptly explained, The cross reminds all visitors that the Spirit of our Lord Jesus Christ is present here. Despite the fact that we are in the infernal abysses, the empty niches gives everyone the opportunity to talk to heaven according to their faith. Until the soul acquires infinite wisdom, it must travel the long road of the symbols of learning and culture that guide it along the pathway of intellectual growth. Before it reaches infinite love, it has to tread the long roads of charity and religious faith in the many sectors of comprehension that ensure its access to higher life. The divine powers that govern us have determined that every kind of honest and respectable faith should find loving veneration here.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So let's talk a little bit about this temple, right? Remember, this is transitory house of assistance, a large institution in the middle of the lower zones. So they went to the temple when they entered. The place Andre Luiz describes like a big chapel, and with nothing but a cross made of a shining material, and a table, white table, and some shallow recesses in form of niches. Nothing else. But and then Andre Luiz describes how he felt, right? And we can think of sometimes we go to some places that the emotion of the place, the vibration of the place, really contaminates us, involves us, right? And we get emotional, we get really touched by the places, right? Some of us probably have met these places in our lives, right? It may be a church, it may be a temple, it may be something else completely different, not religious, but the vibration of the place involves us. So what happens to Andre Luiz here, there is that he gets touched, he remembers his mother teaching the prayer, Our Lord, and then he starts with the emotion. He prays. He recites the Lord's Prayer. He wanted to talk to Silas, but couldn't. He could only pray and weep. And then when he finished the prayer, he sees that Silas have noticed his gesture, and he mentions that very few can enter this room without entering into prayer. Again, this is a place that spirits that go there have all the attributes and conditions to be in those kind of places. Rebellious spirits are not going to get there. So those that go inside the temple are the ones that are prepared to feel what the temple gives to them in terms of vibrations and emotion. And then he describes as this arena of thought is sublimated by the remorse and pains of thousands. And then Andre Luiz asks the meaning of the cross and the empty niches, and he explains that the cross reminds all visitors of our Lord Jesus Christ that is present there, despite the fact that we are in the middle of lower zones, the infernal abysses. And the empty niches gives everyone the opportunity to talk to heaven according to their faith. So this is open to spirits of all faiths. We have to understand that we are talking here about the lower zones above a Christian region. So of course, if you go to a place above, let's say, China or India or Japan, where they don't even understand who Jesus, they don't know about Jesus, don't know who Jesus is, probably they'll have different features there. But in a place where it's above a majority of Christian believers, and even those of Muslim faith and Jewish faith know Jesus and understand a little bit about Jesus. But it's open to all those according to their own faith. It's just a symbol there. And then it's very interesting when he talks about the evolution that we have through faith, right? Because until we have acquired infinite wisdom, we must travel the long road of symbols of learning and culture, different learning, different culture that guides our intellectual growth. And before we reach infinite love, it has to travel the long roads of charity and religious faith in the many sectors of comprehension that ensure its access to the higher life. What he means to say here is that we have to go through different belief systems in order to reach a higher understanding, especially if we get stuck to the dogmas and fanaticism of the specific religions we follow. So then we have to move to different religions to learn to amplify our understanding and vision of religious faiths. If we have a more open understanding and vision of religion, then we may not need to go to these different types of religion. These are more for those that are very ingrained in their own religions. That's when he says that you have to go into different long roads of religious faith in many sectors of comprehension. Many sectors comprehension meaning different religious beliefs in different places. Okay, Elmo, here something?
No.
Okay, any questions, comments here? Okay, so let's see the people that are praying there.
Okay. Noticing that the small group of souls in prayer had aligned themselves in various positions, some standing or sitting comfortably, while most were kneeling, Elijah offered some questions, which Sila answered in summation. Yes, as long as mutual respect is observed, anyone can pray as they see fit. Responding to our healthy curiosity, he nodded toward a woman who was weeping on her knees in front of a nearby niche. Let's observe that sister in prayer, for instance. We'll stay behind her so as not to disturb her with our presence. By enveloping her in our vibrations of empathy, we'll be able to tune into her mental field and perceive the images she creates in her personal way of praying. We followed his guidance, and as I focus my attention on that white-haired bowed head, I can see the changes in the narrow space of the niche. To my surprise, I saw a beautiful picture take place little by little, as if it were emerging from the lily white wall. It was the living reproduction of the lovely sculpture by Xavier representing what happened.
He
there.
was a famous Portuguese sculptor. Okay, just
okay.
let me go back there. Sorry, I thought he was going to just open the. But no. Okay, there you go. Representing the Most Holy Mother, mourning her dead divine son.
In the top, up in the top.
Yeah, the Venerable Woman's.
Oh, the Venerable Woman's unspoken prayer resounded in my ears. Most Holy Mother, Divine Lady of Mercy, take pity on my children wandering in the darkness. For the love of your Son, sacrificed on the cross, help my suffering spirit so that I can help them. I know that because of their sinister attachment to material possessions, they didn't hesitate to fall into crime. Dear lady, in reality, they are wretched murderers that terrestrial justice never discovered. For that reason, they are more intensely suffering the drama of their own consciences ensnared in guilt. At this point in the prayer, Silas touched our shoulders lightly, reminding us of the lesson at hand. At this point in the prayer, Silas touched our shoulders lightly, reminding us of the lesson at hand. This poor, discarded mother is praying for her children lost in the darkness, in keeping with the memories she brought from earth and the faith that her heart can harbor for the time being. She is evoking the watch care of the Most Holy Mother in the form of Our Lady of Mercy. That means the image we're seeing. This comment, however, was left hanging in the air because Silas quickly finished it. Is her own creation, the reflection of her own thoughts with which she is weaving the prayer, thoughts that adjust to the sensitive material of the niche to form the colorful, vibrant image that corresponds to her desire. Automatically answering the question suggested by the problem, he continued, but that doesn't mean that the prayer is being answered by the Holy Mother herself. Petitions like this one rise to the higher realms and are received by emissaries of the Virgin of Nazareth in order to be examined and answered according to the criteria of true wisdom. Okay.
So here, they see a small group of souls in prayer in various positions, some standing, sitting, kneeling, and Sila said, as long as mutual respect is observed, anyone can pray as they see fit. One thing we learn in Spiritism, right? What is important is our thoughts, is our vibrations, is how we are connecting with our prayers. the place we are, the position we're in, nothing matters. You know, you can be kneeling in a very contrite position, and your mind may be wandering away and you are not really praying. So the position doesn't help at all. While you can be in the middle of a busy crowd, and you can enter into a higher vibration and connection with the spiritual benefactors, with the higher spirits, and do a sincere prayer. So as long as you are respecting others, as they say here, mutual respect, anyone can pray as they see fit. And then they approach this sister that is in prayer, and Silas say that connecting with enveloping her with their vibrations, they will be able to attune to her mental field and perceive the messages she creates in her personal way of praying. So she's praying, and in her prayer, she is creating images in her head. So what they could see, a lovely sculpture representing the mother, the Holy Mother, mourning her dead divine son. It's one of the many, the Pietà in Rome is the same image with Mary holding Jesus in her lap, right? And we have many of these representations, as she was specific, seeing this reproduction of this sculpture by this sculptor called Teixeira Lopes, a Portuguese one. And then she prays to her for her children that are wandering in the darkness. They are still incarnated. She's in the spiritual world. She says that because of their attachment to material possessions, they fell into crime, and they were never discovered by terrestrial justice, but they are feeling guilty themselves, their own conscience. Again, our own conscience are the biggest judges that we have to face in our journey. So Silas explained that she brings the memories from Earth and the faith in her heart, and she's asking for the help of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Andre Luiz says, so the images we are seeing, and Silas explains, it's her own creation, reflection of her own thoughts, which she is weaving in prayer, meaning they are not really seeing the mother of Jesus, they are seeing the images that this lady praying has formed in her mind. She adjusts the material of the niche to form the colorful images that corresponds to her desire. And then he continues, it doesn't mean that the prayer is being answered by the Holy Mother herself. Of course, prayers like these rise to the higher realms. A sincere prayer reaches the higher realms and is received by the workers of the Virgin Mary, of the Holy Mother, and they will be examined and answered according to the criteria of true wisdom. Again, it's an explanation, a reinforcement of how prayer works, what forms in our mind during the prayer, and how the prayer is received and assisted in the spiritual world. Okay, Elmo?
No, no comment.
Any questions here? Okay. Sorry.
Glazing around at the other worshippers, he continued. Devotees of various great features of a number of Christian denominations are gathered here. With his broad experience, he looked around and indicated another woman in prayer. This woman is asking for the protection of Saint Teresa of Lisieux, the gentle Carmelite nun who discarnate in France. Does her prayer actually reach the famous nun's heart? Asked Hilario, as optimistic as ever. Why wouldn't it? Answered Silas. After the death of the body, truly sanctified individuals are entrusted with the highest quotes of service in the expansion of the light or charity, knowledge or virtue, which they were the living source of inspiration during the human learning experience. A Okay. A source of inspiration during the human learning experience. A beatific and impassive heaven exists only in the idle mind of those who intend to grow spiritually without work and to have peace without effort. Everything is creation, insensate beauty, improvement, joy, and light in the divine and infinite work of God expressed through those who grow spiritually towards infinite love. Thus, the soul that leaves a sowing of faith and self-denial behind on earth begins to nourish on the spirit plane the crop of ideas and examples it left to its brothers and sisters of the evolutionary struggle. This crop expands among those who continue its sacred ministry, thereby increasing in work and influence for the good, the illuminative and sanctifying action the Lord has entrusted to it. Hilario was following this explanation as closely as I was and asked, what about the hypothesis that the souls that people regard as saints are not saintly at all in the realm of the truth? Are the prayers addressed to them heard, even if they are enduring painful experiences in the zones of darkness? Yes, Hilario clarified the assistants. Such prayers may not immediately reach the spirits evoked, but they do reach others who represent what these spirits stand for. In the name of God, these other spirits act lovingly as their substitutes in the assistance work of the good, since all love in the eternal creation is, in fact, from God. Let us imagine, for example, that Sister Teresa was not in an immediate position to lend her aid. If that were the case, then great souls purified in the discipline of the institution in which she distinguished herself would be charged with acting in her stead until she could carry out her ministry in person. Nevertheless, pondered my colleague, are we to believe that the principles of the many religious congregations are still present in the highest spheres? The assistant smiled and added, not in the narrow sense of earthly sectarianism. The more a spirit ascends toward the higher notions of life, the more it abandons human conventions because it understands that providence is light and love for all. However, until the soul identifies itself with the sublime factors of cosmic consciousness, the circles of study, faith, and spiritual growth and solidarity through the good they do wherever they are deserve the highest respect of the higher intelligences in charge of carrying out the divine plans.
So here we go to he talks about the various great figures of a number of Christian denominations that are devotees that are gathered there. So they looked around and see a woman in prayer asking for the protection of Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux, a Carmelite nun who discarnated in France. And Hilario asks if the prayer reaches her, and Sila say, why wouldn't it? So these individuals, the truly sanctified individuals, they receive the highest quota of service, meaning they continue working on the spiritual world to help and assist those in need. And then he says that this idea of a beatific and impassive heaven exists only in the idle mind of those who intend to grow spiritually without work and to have peace without effort. So the idea of the angels playing harp in the clouds are images created for those that want to have nothing to do, desire to have nothing to do when they go back to the spiritual world. So he says everything is creation, non-stop creation, incessant beauty, improvement, joy, and light. The creation, God is always creating, and those spirits we are co-creators of the universe with God. In the sense that our physical body is also hosting a number of microbes and bacteria that are growing and progressing, and it's all connected in the natural law of evolution. But then Hilario asks a very interesting question, which is a very common question, right? What about the souls of people that are regarded as saints, but are not saintly at all, right? That what happened to the prayers addressed to them? So Mr. John Smith, that is considered a saint by the church, but in reality is not really a saint because he's a struggling spirit that ends up in the zone of darkness, right? We're not going to mention any specific ones. We're just talking about generically. And Silas clarified that prayers may not reach immediately the spirits involved, but they reach others who represent what the spirits stand for. So if they believe this spirit is responsible for some sort of assistance, and because of the work he or she did when they were incarnated, which is not exactly what they did, the prayers to that specific help and assistance are going to reach spirits, that other spirits will act as their substitutes in the assistance work of good. Again, we just finished the other book, Between Heaven and Earth, and we learn about diverted prayer, which is the beginning of the book, when the girl, the 14-year-old girl, prays and to ask for help and assistance of her mother, who was discarnated, and the mother was actually obsessing her stepmother. So, of course, the mother couldn't be of any assistance, but the diverted prayer reaches No Solar and a group of spirits that are immediately sent to help her. So the prayer, a sincere prayer, always is answered and always is heard, even if it doesn't go to the source that we are thinking when we pray. So they say if Sister Therese was not immediate position to lend her aid, the great souls purified in discipline of the institution in which she distinguished herself would be charged with acting in her stead until she could do the work in person. And then Hilario continues, if all the principles of all many religions, congregations are still present in the higher spheres, and the answer, yes, but not in the narrow sense of earthly sectarianism, meaning the divisions and the rivalries between the religions that tend to dissipate in the spiritual world the more we evolve. Again, for spirits that are still immersed in the imperfections or misconceptions of their own religions, they will find themselves not in these places where these religions are practiced in the true sense of their thoughts and their lessons. They will find themselves in difficult places. But for those that truly follow their religions sincerely and with a sincere belief and without any prejudices against others, they will find themselves continue following those religions in the higher spheres, of course, without the divisions. And then he complements that until the soul identifies itself with the cosmic conscience, the sublime factors of cosmic conscience, the circles of study, faith, spiritual growth, and solidarity, through the good that they do wherever they are, deserve the highest respect of the intelligence, meaning they respect their sincere beliefs and they respect our necessity to go through the phases of learning and adapting ourselves to the realities of the spiritual world and of sincere faith and belief. Okay? Anything here, Elmo?
No.
Any questions here? Yes.
I have, when it says here, the higher notions of life, okay, and then we abandon the human conventions. Am I to understand that religions, the way we have now, are just mere conventions that we need in our advancement or evolution, but in reality, there are higher spheres there that has nothing to do with Buddhism, Christianity, Jewish.
Yeah.
Am I correct to believe that?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. It's exactly that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but you know, if you
No,
think
no, no.
of
I'm not putting down the religions because we need them at this point.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if you think, let's think of a nun here, very he has sincere faith, belief, has done a wonderful work, but truly believes that her religion is the true religion, is the only religion, right? But she's not a evil spirit. On the contrary, she's doing work. So she'll find herself in the spiritual world in a place that she can continue the work that she's been doing here, and eventually she'll learn there that all religions is one and the same, right? It's not even religions, is something else, right? So that's exactly what they are saying here. Yes, Anna.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hello.
João, there's some religions that approach prayer in terms of numbers, quantity. They even have little tools that they use to count how many prayers, how many reciting of mantras they do a day or a month, I don't know. They have temples they go around, and depending on how many times you go around, it's a particular prayer. And I'm not sure, I don't really know, but I imagine there is a particular reason that they believe they need to accumulate a particular number of prayers. So that is, I wanted to understand it. Is there anything that makes sense in terms of the amount of times you need to focus? I'm not really thinking of how many times you need to say a prayer, but how much you need to focus on an intent for a vibration to reach, or collectively to count differently. We also hear so many attempts of people asking others to gather and to meditate together, and there's actually studies that try to indicate how much it's effective in terms of changing the vibration, or I think I've seen somewhere a lady talking about making a connection of how the number of crime actually went down when a particular group of people gathered in meditation in name of peace or something like that. Is there any connection at all in the books that we studied that could make sense of something around this sense of counting, or focusing multiple times and multiple numbers of people towards some prayer?
Yeah, there is nothing specifically in that sense. What it is that what's our target at the end of the road is that our whole day is a prayer, right? Every act that we do, every action that we take, every thought is a prayer. So how do we get there? We get there by starting small, right? So for those that need discipline, for those that need guidance, maybe that's the instrument. But again, it's an individual journey, and each one of them needs to take their own journey step by step. So when you learn about how to meditate, right? They normally say you try for 1 minute to meditate, because if you never meditated in your life and you start with 15 minutes, you cannot stay 15 minutes focusing on meditating. You can barely stay 1 minute. But for those that are more advanced, they can stay meditating for 1 hour, for 2 hours. So there is some truth in the sense of methods that will help us reach higher levels of conscience higher connection with the spiritual world. But again, if you follow a formula but your mind is not there, then it's useless, right? So what Spiritism teaches us is really the focus and the intention and the ability to elevate your thoughts and connect to the higher spirits. And if you can do that only 5 minutes per day at the moment, do it seriously for 5 minutes. Maybe in 1 month, 1 year, you can do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour. Eventually, we need to reach the level of 24 hours a day. Our actions are all actions of sincere prayer, in the sense of everything we do is connected to our spiritual growth and a spiritual evolution. I don't know. I almost, maybe you can add something.
Yeah, I think I'm addressing both Paco and Anna. There is a statement of Emmanuel that I like very much. I've said that multiple times, I'm going to repeat. In which he says, the religion, singular, is the dew drop on the tip of a leaf. The religions, plural, is when the drop falls on the dirt. That said, meaning that there is the purity of the religion, right? Taking it as the religare, they reconnect with the divinity, whatever name gives to that divinity, there is a purity in there. Unfortunately, when it falls on the dirt, meaning when it gets contaminated with our vices, with our selfishness, with our pride, with everything that you have of thing, we create the religions. But the religion, the pure religare is there. So as we progress, as we elevate ourselves morally, as we eliminate those impurities that contaminates the purity of religion, that religion becomes more purified, of course, and it's better because the individual who goes seeking for the divinity in religion, and he has that intention of that true religare. But unfortunately, we all of us are still contaminating the purity of that religion with our vices. And unfortunately, there are the false prophets, there are the wolves dressed in sheep clothes who perpetuate the religions, the contaminated religion with their own vices and impurities for their own profit. So that is the reason I do not like religions, any one of them, except for that reason. But I think that answers primarily Paco's question. Is religion necessary for us? Yes, it is. Of course it is, because we all look for it. We have that necessity to reunite, to religare, right? And each one of us will reach that level to the best of our abilities, regardless of which two you choose. Christian, Buddhism, Hinduism, or any sections of Buddhism, of Christianity, just being intellectually evolved enough to be properly selective. Select one that offers the best possibility of reaching that true religare outside of the free of all the contaminations that some of them offer. That's not the religions itself, but the leaders of those religions. It is important for us? Yes, each one will find the one that suits the one better with the best intention and doing the best of not allowing our vices and the vices of the leaders of those communities to perpetuate the contamination of the religion. And to address Anna's case, we studied that just this week in the Spirit's book, in which our progress is done here through service, to placing ourselves at the service of others. That the time that we spend working, doing some kind of labor that provides anything for the community, it's more productive than the meditations that we can do, the time that we spend doing that religare. Because the religare that we read here, need here, is to serve one another. Confucius used to say that, yeah, I know there is a high sphere of life, but we are not there. We are here now. So let's do the work here now, take care of us here now. And if you do that, we're going to reach that higher level. But if you do, you stay here. Think of that higher sphere of existence and neglect where we are right now. We are not going to go anywhere.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Okay, Zoraida, let's continue.
Yes. Immediately thereafter, as if he wanted to set the merits of the lesson in our minds, he directed his gaze toward another woman who was praying nearby. After a short observation, he invited us to approach her. We turned into her mental field and were surprised to see in the niche the living and kindly image of the selfless Dr. Menezes, yes. At the same
Bezerra de Menezes.
de Menezes, okay. At the same time, we can hear our disconsoling sister's prayer. Dr. Menezes, for the love of Jesus, please don't abandon my poor Ricardo to the darkness of desperation. My poor husband is going through such a harsh ordeal. Oh, kind friend, help us. Please don't let him fall into the abyss of suicide. Give him courage and patience and uplift his spirit. The problems and tears that afflict him in the world are falling on my soul like drops of acid. Silas interrupted our observation, pointing out, as we can see, the sanctuary is used for worthy prayer, regardless of denomination. Over there, someone is calling for help from the nun of Lisieux. Here, a poor soul is beseeching the help of the noteworthy friend of Brazilian spiritist. I observed the great doctor's face according to the memory of the sister faithfully praying before us, and I noticed the perfection of the mental photograph she was exteriorizing. We saw Dr. Menezes' picture there as we had known him, serene, simple, kind, and fatherly. Anticipating our usual questions, the assistant informed us, upon discarnating after more than 50 years of service to the Spiritist cause, Adolfo Menezes de Menezes had the right to assemble a large team of collaborators who serve under his banner of charity. Hundreds of studious and benevolent spirits follow his directives in the sowing of the good, which he performs in the name of Christ. That's why Hilario added, it's easy to understand how he can be working in so many places at the same time. Exactly, agreed Silas, as happens in radiophonic, where one broadcasting station with several receiving stations is like one thinking brain with millions of arms. Great missionaries of the light working for the good can reflect themselves to dozens of or hundreds of workers who follow their guidance in working for the Lord. Lovingly invoked in so many spiritist institutions and homes, Menezes de Menezes helps all of them, easily, personally, or through the spirits that faithfully represent him. In that sense, added my colleague, he has his own field of activity, just like persons in command of human work have administrative headquarters from which they forward the organization's directives to their subordinates. Precisely, confirmed Silas, smiling. The Lord has every means to install any suitable director of human work, even in the most insignificant circumstances of societal life on the planet, and he would not forget the missionaries of the light in the spirit realm. Saying this, Silas quietly led us to the door to the outer courtyard. When we reached the exit, we noticed that the ambient light grew dimmer almost immediately, a few yards from the threshold, giving us the feeling that it endured tremendous impact from the surrounding darkness. A huge crowd was clustered in an enormous courtyard. Various groups talked loudly. Some were weeping, some were pleading, some were mourning. Our eyes had not yet adapted to the darkness, and we could barely make out the silhouettes of the great number of people gathered there. However, we can clearly hear their words and cries, their ardent prayers, and their disconsoling appeals. Noticing our surprise, the assistant remarked, "This is Mansau's Parlatory, where ranks of sincere and suffering souls gather. They are usually in the depths of profound despair, which keeps them from the benefits of peaceful prayer." And with an expressive gesture, he added, "This large space dedicated to free expression truly defines our vibratorial borders. Beyond it is a rebellious, terrible suffering that causes monstrosity and madness, depicting the hell of ordinary religious interpretation. However, inside our walls, the suffering is patient and understanding, creating renewal and readjustment for the pathway to heaven." Looking at the disheartening scene in front of us, we couldn't find the words to describe its impact on our sentiments. That is why we instinctively kept still in light of the assistant's own silence, which to our minds was quietly resorting to the power of prayer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is the end. We find here another woman that was praying for Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. So she's a spiritist. Dr. Bezerra de Menezes was the president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. A very revered personality in Spiritism. A lot of Spiritist institutions in Brazil and even outside Brazil use his name in the prayers, in the name of the institutions. It is said that he was offered the opportunity to move to a higher world, to a more elevated world, but he decided to continue and helping those that are here, the Spiritists. He, of course, a lot of prayers that are directed to him are attended by the work that he does with the team that he does this work. Dr. Bezerra de Menezes was a doctor. That's why they say doctor, a medical doctor. He attended a lot of poor people for free. He had several children. There was a famous case of one of his sons that was profoundly obsessed, and in the Spiritist meeting, in a mediumship meeting, he received the message that if they disconnected the spirit that was obsessing his son would probably not resist and discarnate. And he said that it was better to disconnect both, and his son effectively discarnated when they had this case. There are some books, psychography of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, received by Chico, received by Divaldo, received by Ivone Pereira. And Divaldo used to receive communications from Dr. Bezerra de Menezes in the end of his presentations in congresses. We saw some of the messages of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes through the voice of Divaldo. So he's very important and well known within the Spiritist community in Brazil. Then they described that after he worked here for 50 years of service. It's very interesting. Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, he found Spiritism once he used to work and live, took the train home. It was a far far from the place that he worked, and a friend of him gave him the Spirit's book, and he was a religious person, but was not very interested in reading the Spirit's book. But because he was a dear friend, he took the present and started reading it when he took the train home. He couldn't stop reading to the end of the Spirit's book, and then when he finished, he mentioned that, wow, I was a spiritist my whole life and I didn't know, because of how it touched him. So Silas explained here his team of collaborators. So every prayer, every request that is done to Dr. Bezerra de Menezes is attended by his team, as it happens in radio or television nowadays, more that we know, right? Millions of arms, great missionaries of the light working for the good, reflect themselves in the works that follow the guidance of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. Helps all of them, either personally or through the spirits that faithfully represent him. So he works like the headquarters of a company that you have the boss that gives instructions to the workers, and the workers follow the directives. Of course, in the case of a spiritual assistance, it doesn't. The work is done without them making mistakes. They follow the workers of Dr. Bezerra are fully capable of doing exactly the work that is needed. Okay, so before we go to the parlatory, Anna, what's your question?
Jean, why couldn't the the son of Dr. Bezerra be disconnected from the obsessor? What is the connection? What was the problem?
Yeah, when it's a case of it's the most extreme case of obsession, right? Which is subjugation. And sometimes when a subjugation happens, the connection between the incarnate and the discarnate spirit is so strong. The incarnated spirit is feeding on the energies of the discarnate spirit, and the health of the incarnated is so precarious that when they disconnect, the connection is so strong, and the health is so precarious that when they disconnect, the incarnate person sometimes cannot survive the loss of these energies. Again, it's an extremely rare case, but it can happen. I don't know if you have something, Elmo, to add here on this case. I know you know this case.
Yeah, the reason is exactly what you said. The two perispirit, in the case of subjugation, are so intensely connected and become so, I wonder what the word symbiotic, but in a case that's more parasitic from the side of the obsessor than anything else. So imagine that a tree or plant who is suffering of an extremely powerful parasite that is sucking all the energy, and of course it's provide, and that now that plant does not have means of even dealing with managing her own processes to survive, and you cut the parasite, and the plant also dies because this plant becomes so dependent on the action of the parasite. Okay. Extremely rare, but if the perispirit is so densely dependent now on the other perispirit, removing one of the perispirit will weaken too much the physical body. The physical body will not survive. But again, this is extremely rare. And it's always with a justification for those cases. In the case of Bezerra de Menezes, that the spirit was obsessing the son, really wanted to get Bezerra de Menezes, but couldn't. So he attacked the son. And you say, but it's not fair. Why is the son paying for the faults of the father? But in reality, that son was a kind of partner of Bezerra, the spirit that now played Bezerra de Menezes in previous reincarnations, when both Bezerra and now the son work together to really cause a lot of harm to that spirit and that group of spirits, actually. So Bezerra moved on, deal with his responsibilities, purified himself to the level of become this amazing deliverer of Jesus' work, and the son did not. So the son was an easy prey, but he was also responsible for things that he did in the past himself. So the idea that now the son is going to pay for the fault of the father is not true. The son is also responsible. Otherwise, there will be no justice. I just want to mention that there to clarify this point.
So, Paco,
I was
you're
wondering,
mute.
yeah, I was wondering, do we have a biography of Dr. Menezes? Do we have
Bezerra de Menezes?
yeah, do we have a biography?
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
I
Yeah,
don't
there
know if
is.
it's translated, though. It's translated?
No, it's not. There is
I'm sorry,
a
Paco.
1,000-page book that was published. There is one Brazilian spiritist that specializes in Dr. Bezerra de Menezes from the Northeast, and he published a book which is a Bible. It's 1,000 pages on Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, but it's not translated. It's too much work to translate. But yeah,
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks, Paco. Okay, so after that they go outside and what's called the Parlatory, and there is a huge crowd there, and with people, spirits weeping, some pleading, some moaning, and André describes as darkness and could barely see the silhouettes. And Silas explained, this is the Parlatory, where ranks of sincere and suffering souls gather. They are usually in the depths of profound despair, which keeps them from the benefits of peaceful prayer. So, what are the spirits that are gathered there? Because the spirits that are inside the temple, they have already organized thoughts, the capacity of pray with sincerity, with the ability to focus on their issues, as we saw from the prayers there, right? Those outside, they are in despair, they cannot organize their thoughts, so they cannot receive the benefits of peaceful prayer, not because they don't deserve it, they don't allow themselves yet, but they are already on the path to be helped and assisted. There are assistants there trying to help them, because you see that Sila says, beyond it is the rebellious, terrible suffering. So beyond that parlatory, outside the borders of mention of peace, are those that are not even interested in repairing. They are just inside their own rebelliousness and madness. But inside the walls, the suffering is patient and understanding, creating renewal and readjustment. Meaning, those that are inside, even if they are still in a confused state of mind, in a disorganized state of mind, they are already in condition of being helped and assisted, so they will receive the assistance they need. It's just a matter of time until they open the door to receive this assistance. Outside the borders are those that are in no condition of being assisted at the moment, so they will stay there until they are in better conditions, or they go to a new reincarnation without even being assisted in these organized places. Andre Luiz is very impacted by it, and but they kept quiet there because he was just observing the scenery. Okay. Okay, Elmo, anything here on this parlatory? No.
Yeah, I think the difference between the outers and the inners is the difference of those who want to be helped in accordance to their wants. Those are the outers, and the inners are the one who wants to be helped in accordance to their needs.
Very good, very good.
Yes, Paco.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm relating this part. How do you say parlatory?
Yeah.
Parlatory to self-help meetings where people gather, no matter nicotine, Emotions Anonymous, alcoholics. For me, it's like all those meetings are kind of parlatory rooms.
Yes, it's a very good comparison. I like that. Yeah.
And much more what just Elmo said. It's not according to what I want, it's according to what I need. So even what he said is even said in the rooms. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
That was
I
you
like
would
that.
agree
Yeah,
with me, do you? Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Okay, if nobody has any more questions or comments, we stop here. Next Sunday, which is the second Sunday of the month, we are going to go back to Jesus in the Home. And Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly, indeed. Thank you very much, John, today for hosting. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, Sarita, for reading for us today. And thank you, everyone, for being here and participating. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the book Action and Reaction, Chapter 11, the Temple and the Parlatory. In the lower regions of the spirit realm, suffering spirits linger with guilt, despair, and remorse. They are in darkness due to past actions, negative thoughts, and vibrations, which is part of the law of cause and consequence. Spiritual rehabilitation and advancement requires accountability, forgiveness, and love. Sincere prayers and petitions to the higher realms and to religious figures such as Christ and the saints may be evoked to assist the suffering, who carry out the divine plans of those in need. Divine providence is light and love for all. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritual centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, our friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.